I called it planned murder every time I would refer to it. In 1973, I was a senior in high school, and a lot of people don't understand this today, as open and everything is today, but when they start talking about abortion and whether to legalize it or not, and you can get them in back alleys and everything, I said, well, what exactly do they do? And when they told me, it was jaw-dropping then and it's jaw-dropping now to me. I said, you mean they actually kill a baby, take a human life? Yeah, that's what they do. And these videos that you've seen come out, we are going to do everything possible to see that, I mean, number one, abortion needs to be done away with totally. There is no excuse to allow someone to kill a child 3 months before it's born, but if you killed it 3 months after it was born, you'd go to jail. But 3 months before, it wasn't a child. I don't know what it was, but they claim that it's not a human being. And now with these latest videos that came out where they're laughing about the nursery, referring to the freezer as the nursery for the babies and the body parts, and then talking about the severed heads that they box up and ship, and they say, now be sure and put a note on there so they're not surprised when they open the box. This, whatever it takes to defund Planned Parenthood. We've started some actions on my committee, Energy and Commerce Committee. We wrote a letter to the Department of Justice on the first day that first video came out, but the public has to stay engaged on this stuff. The first video came out and everyone was shocked. The next one came out, they were shocked further. The next one came out, they were shocked further. But after that, on the fourth and the fifth, and sometimes they'll come out and you won't even hear about it now. But we have to keep up the fight, because that is something, we have devalued human life in this country to such a point. When you see all these different random acts of violence and shootings and murders and stabbings and whatever it is, people just have, and they started in 1973, I think, with Roe v. Wade, which Roe v. Wade brings up a good point. Ruth Bader Ginsburg may not be there through another presidency. Scalia may. I had breakfast with him. He came and spoke at our Conservative Opportunity Society that Steve King runs, that Newt Gingrich started. Once a week we meet, Conservative Opportunity Society, and I'm going to grab me a water here. I'm going to bring it up. But Judge Scalia spoke there, and he may get to the point that he wants to give it up. There may be a lot of vacancies in this next 4-year period that the next president is going to have a say on. And that's why it's vital that we back whoever the Republican nominee for president is. And we have not only back them, we have to get excited about backing them. And that was our downfall in 2012. People were not excited about Mitt Romney for one reason or another, and they stayed home. If Mitt Romney would have gotten the same voters that John McCain got to turn out in 08 and 12, we wouldn't have had Barack Obama 2.0. And people can talk about, well, I didn't like Romney because he was this or that or whatever. And I've talked to people that didn't vote for Romney and they didn't vote for Obama. They voted for the constitutional candidate or one of the others. And I said, well, then you voted for Obama. Oh, no, I didn't. I would never vote. I said, what's the same as? So we have to get whoever our nominee is. We've got 17 running, probably 5 of them probably have an honest shot at it. But however many that is, we need to support that person. And we need to get out our base. We need to get out the voters and turn out of the polls, because it is vitally important. A lot of this, I know that Ted Cruz said day one he's going to undo all the executive orders and he's going to do away with Obamacare. A lot of them, I think, will do the same thing. They'll do away with a lot of these executive orders. And when you have a president that rules with a pen and a phone, as this president does, let's look at the EPA, okay? Waters of the U.S. All year long, I have been railing against it. I've been writing about it. I voted in committee several times against the rule, the waters of the U.S. That's where any water that runs into any water, 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 that could run into any water, that could run into something that's navigable, the EPA wants to control. The Farm Bureau, is there anyone here from the Farm Bureau? The Farm Bureau told me the other day that they estimate 97% of Missouri farmland could be controlled by the EPA through this rule that goes into effect tomorrow. And now everyone's up in arms. They're like, why don't you do something? Why doesn't Senator Blunt do something? Well, as long as the Constitution's set up like it is, and you have to have the votes you have to have, and you have to have the override votes, you're not going to get something through the House and then get it through the Senate. It's 67 votes, which is veto-proof. And you might get it through at 60 possibly, but that'd be a stretch. So if you got 60 votes, then you send it over to the president for his signature. He's not going to sign off on his baby, his EPA, to undo the rules that they're promulgating over there. So that's why these elections matter. That's why the President of the United States matters a whole lot. If we had the House like we do now, if we keep the Senate, I've got to be honest with you, I don't see us picking up seats in the Senate. We might lose a couple, we might pick up, but we might stay even. There's a lot more Republicans up this time, and the Democrats are mostly in pretty safe seats. So thinking we're going to pick up 60 votes and have 60 votes in the Senate to go next time, as a practical matter, is not going to happen. So that's why it's so important that we stay or build in the House. We have 245 right now in the House. It takes 218 to pass legislation. We have 2 vacancies. When those special elections are held, they're both in very Republican districts. We'll be back up to 247 in the House. We may gain 4 or 5 seats. We may lose 4 or 5 seats in the House, but we're still going to be around the 240 level, probably at a minimum in the House. So we'll be in real good shape in the House. But we've got to have the White House if we're going to get anything and stop this overreach. And if Joe Biden is the nominee, it's going to be Barack Obama 3. If Bernie Sanders, who could possibly be the nominee, is the nominee, he's going to make Barack Obama look like a conservative. And if it's Hillary, all bets are off. You don't know if she will do like her husband did or whatever. I don't really think she'll go the distance. She may. That's just my personal opinion on that. But anyway, on the local level with Jake Easton here and Kim in our Joplin office on 32nd Street, I'm very proud of all my district people. Matt Huff is somewhere around. I think he's about paying for everybody's dinner. So, anyway, Matt's out there somewhere. And Royce and everybody in the Springfield office, but when we have passport issues, people call up and their kids are going and their passport's expired, or it's within 60 days of expiring, they won't let you get on a plane anymore if your passport's within 60 days of expiring. If you're going to be back in 7 days, you can't get on the plane. And a lot of people don't know that, and they call me on Sunday afternoon and say, hey, I'm at the airport, my wife and child are headed out to Germany, but I'm staying behind because my passport expires in 54 days, and it has to expire in more than 60 days before they'll let me board the plane. So there's those type of issues. The veterans issues, which I've had 3 ladies handle our veterans issues. And to be honest, the first one we had, I thought we'd never have anyone better to handle our veterans issues. She had so much success. One guy came up to me one day, and his mom had been trying for 37 months to get her deceased husband's benefits. 37 months. Tried with every political office she could go to. Came to us. 28 days later, she got her first check. 6 weeks after that, she got all of her back checks. And they, of course, thanked me profusely. And I saw them in a restaurant, said, I want you to come over here and meet my mom, which I did. So this is the lady you helped. He said, I got to tell you. He said, we're lifelong Democrats. So we've been Democrats our whole life. But he said, you haven't convinced us. But, we're leaning your way. And then they mentioned a very prominent Springfield Democrat that had been prominent for years and said, I used to work with them on campaigns and things. But when someone comes to us for help in the local level, it doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Liberal, Conservative. We are going to do everything we can to help you. I can't guarantee, I always say this, I can't guarantee good results, but I can guarantee good effort. And my staff and I will put forth the best effort we can to help you, whether it's an SBA issue or a veterans issue or IRA. But anyway, So she got the lady her back benefits. I thought nobody'd ever beat her. Well, then she told me she wanted to go back to college, wanted to start something new. All right, so I thought, gosh, I can never replace her. So we had an intern. You know, you heard me talk about the interns earlier? We had an intern that had interned free of charge for us, moved to Colorado. When the first one that was doing the VA stuff left, I said, well, do you think she'd want, oh, she wouldn't, she set up out there, she wouldn't come back to Springfield. So we called her, and you know, she was back in about 24 hours, and she was actually better than the first one we had on the veterans issues. Well, I asked her if she'd like to go to D.C. Yes, she'd like to work in D.C. So we moved her to D.C., and I think, well, that's kind of silly. I'm kind of cutting off my nose despite my face, taking her because I'll never replace her. And now the lady we have, honest to goodness, is the best of the three. So we have had really, really, really good success with them. I was speaking earlier this week. We've been going Monday, like 7:30 in the morning all day long, covering all 10 and a half counties that I have. And but we were speaking, I think it was down in Cassville maybe, but a guy came out of the room and he said, I got to tell you, he said, my dad worked with that lady in your office. She's not there anymore. She's in D.C. And I said, Hillary. Yeah, that's it, Hillary. Hillary worked with Hillary, and I said, well, now Lisa's the new Hillary. And he said, oh, he's met Lisa. He loves Lisa too. Lisa's helping him too. So, but those are the type of things that make you feel good. And when I was first running for Congress, it was an eight-way primary on the Republican side. I was walking in CVS, I always say QVC, but CVS drugstore in Springfield, and that big one on Glenstone. Walking down, and on the other side of the gondola, I heard, hey, Billy. And I looked over, and there was Roy Blunt. And he said, I got to tell you, he said, what you're doing right now is the toughest part of it, campaigning. He said, that's the worst part of it. He said, what's really rewarding is when you get in and get sworn in and are able to help people. He said, that is really what's rewarding about the job, and he is right. So, anyway, God bless y'all. Thank you. We've got the highway bill coming up. I meant to mention that too real quickly. We did a continuing resolution, which I despise, but we did one to get it through to October 30. And before the end of October, which we go back into session right after Labor Day. So we'll only have like 7 weeks to do a long-term highway bill. And they claim they're going to get it done. I hope they're right. But that's something that we absolutely have to get. You cannot build highways 3 months at a time, and that's what we've been trying to do. And so that's number one is defund Planned Parenthood. Don't let any money go to any abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, or anybody else. And number two is the highway bill when we get back. We did start the appropriations process earlier this year than we had since 1940. I mean, not 1940, since in the last 40 years, since Richard Nixon was in office. And we started getting our appropriation bills done. So after the first 100 days of the session with McConnell and Boehner, and finally working some things out, they did start the appropriations process earlier than they had in the past. So let us know if you're coming to Washington. I had a guy text me yesterday, and he said, we're in Washington, and we want to go to get a tour of West Point tomorrow. And the people we're with are leaving at 3:30 to go back to Springfield. Can you do that? And I'm like, I'm in Springfield. I don't know how I would know if I could do that or not. But I get a hold of Ben, who again will put forth good effort. Ben had them in West Point first thing this morning. So if you're coming, don't see me over here at Books A Million or Granny Schaefer's or whatever and come up to me and say, oh, we were in Washington last week or 2 weeks ago. Well, why didn't you call me? Oh, we thought you'd be too busy. We didn't want to. We will set up White House tours for you. We will give you personal tours of the Capitol. We'll set up Library of Congress tours, Holocaust Museum. If it's sold out, we can get you in. The national monuments, if they're sold out, if I will personally go over, if I'm in town, and have a little bit of advance notice, like day, we can, even though they're sold out, we can get you tickets. So keep that in mind. Like I say, we love seeing people out there. We see quite a few from Joplin, actually, that come out and see us in D.C. And I've got a little office. When I got sworn in, There was 6 offices left to pick from, and so I've got one of the worst 6 offices in Washington, D.C., but I like it, and it's people know where to find us. They come back year